Today I'm going to show you that there is risk in all things. And in the end, it's about options and diversification. So let's get started. Everybody, welcome back to Reason for Truth, where the truth comes first. Reasons come last, but we're always constantly learning, because when we stop learning, we stop teaching, or at least stop teaching well. And if you're new to this channel, whether you're Christian or not, hey, welcome aboard. Today I want to pick up where we left off last episode, talking about biblical truth and reality in light of having more than one job amongst others, as opposed to just having a monolithic single job. Listen, we're talking here about our life and our vocation, which these things are unpredictable. And they carry risk, especially when we go out on one job. I think there's more risk in keeping one job than multiple jobs. But I believe God's going to bless us when we step out in faith and trust Him in times of uncertainty. Biblically speaking, God makes clear through Solomon that life, in all its uncertainty, it carries risks. There's no way around it. While wisdom cannot remove life's uncertainties, it certainly can help us navigate our difficulties and help us cope with those risks. And today I want to look at two key areas in terms of uncertainty and risk. Now, first, in the area of finances. Solomon, we know he's called the Qualet, which is Hebrew for preacher, encourages us to invest wisely. He says to cast your bread on the surface of the water. What does that mean? This is an image from maritime trading. Fishing in biblical times, that is today, can be very profitable vocation, but it does carry some risk. And as a wise investor, we ought not always be adverse to taking some risk, especially when there's genuine possibility of real gain. Verse 1, it's part of life, and it's the only way to get ahead and have more rewarding life is to take some risk. Reckless, excess risk can be bad, and often is, especially in our older years. We don't want to take excess risk. You take the excess risks when you're younger, but taking some risk is always good, it doesn't matter what part of life you're at, right? If you decide to move to a new community, you're taking a risk, leaving your friends to move into a community that's easier, let's say your retirement age. That's a risk, but that could be a really good thing. Risk to move to a new city or a state or a country can be, especially in our older years, can be a huge risk, but also could be a great blessing. I can tell you none of those things would be just easy to do, but they certainly can carry great reward, okay? And in our retirement, if it's cheaper to live in another country, for example, or a different state within the United States, perhaps like a red state where you're taxed less, well, perhaps that's the better choice. Risk at most any time in life is biblical and can be exciting and rewarding. It could also be scary. That's number 2. Third and lastly, we do not know which of our investments will succeed. Verse 6, or what calamities may come upon the earth and wipe out all of our investments and gains. Verse 2, we live in a very unsettled world. I think this is more true today than it ever has. Even in biblical times, things change with technology instantly. As a side note, we should be engaged in diligent, active labor and avoid looking, I think, to passive income. And passive income as a legitimate source of income is not real. Why? Because there's no such thing as passive income to begin with. If you leave your income source idle, it will eventually be taken over or surpassed by those who work harder than you and smarter than you. Such thinking, I believe, it's laziness. It's unwise, and it's a formula for failure, as Solomon points out. What makes us think that we can not work and get paid for it? Kind of reminds me of going to these coffee shops or otherwise restaurants where they say, would you like to leave a tip? And you went and picked your food up. Didn't even get served. Tip for what? In conclusion, having more than one job in general, it speaks to being wise. Our vocation is always unpredictable, always carries risk. Whether we're self-employed or work with someone else, everything. You can be bought out and told tomorrow that your company's been sold and you have no job. But we need to understand that God will bless us when we step out in faith and trust Him, even in the times of uncertainty. So I want to close out today by reading the NEB version of Ecclesiastes, which I think gives a very accurate visual interpretation of Ecclesiastes chapter 11, verses 1 and 2. A little better, I think, more clear than other versions perhaps. But it says this, send your grain across the seas, and in time you will get a return. Divide your merchandise among 7 ventures, 8 maybe. Did you catch that? He's talking about ventures. Send your merchandise among 7 ventures, 8 maybe. Those are separate things. Each venture is a different thing. Then it goes on to say, since you do not know what disasters may occur on earth. In reality, like the benefits that come from seafarer trading, fishing, especially during that time, active participation and involvement in diverse business or vocations gives a promise of some return because we're not depending on one job, but we're diversified. We're literally personally involved with them, working, not seeing them or seeking, business as something that's passive on a regular basis. Doesn't mean you can't take some time off again. Remember, there's always the possibility of risk or disaster in anything, at any time for anybody, or failure in anything we do, including the markets. Following that wisdom, we should make calculated, prudent investments in numerous ventures, as Solomon says, 7, yes to 8, rather than to put all our eggs in one basket. That's what he's saying. Don't put your eggs in one basket. That should have been the name of the talk. Ecclesiastes chapter 11, verse 2. Let's make sure to depend on God and not man, and use all the gifts he's given us. And I trust you, if you do that, you might find greater joy, greater happiness. And if you risk it, you might just find you get some good biscuits. All right, any of that, let's make sure you just don't take any risks now. Bam, just knock out that subscribe button. Boom, left hook, right hook, Goncio Sinistro. Hit that alert bell. Tell you when another Garofalo Reason for Truth episode's coming up. Make sure you come over to see me at my community. Join you. I want to see you in there. StephenGarofalo.com. I'll put that up on the screen. God's blessings to you. I'm your host, Stephen Garofalo. This is your Reason for Truth for today.